Ideally, we want to see our Diabell Star cards, and we want to see some piece of Dark Magician non-engine so that we can get our full Dragoon, Sylvia, Secret Village, IP, and board. That does not always happen. Very frequently, you'll see only Diabell Star cards and no Dark Magician engine, or perhaps you may even see only Shining Sarcophagus cards. So now we don't even have the Sylvia as an option unless we get lucky and draw into it. And now we're in a position where we have to choose whether we want to end on Secret Village with no Dragoon or Dragoon with no Secret Village. We cannot get to Dragoon and IP and Secret Village through Shining Sarcophagus. We can only get one of those two pieces, the Secret Village or the Dragoon. In a blind game one, you have to decide what is going to get more value out of for you. And this is going to be very contingent on the room that you're in. If you are at locals and you know what everybody else is playing, you can make an educated guess about, or you might even know, in fact, what your opponent's playing because it's your buddy and you know what he plays. If it's a deck like Sky Striker or Mitsurugi, safe bet that Secret Village with no Dragoon will be adequate to win the game. The Mitsurugi monsters don't do anything without their ritual spells that they can't access, and ditto the Sky Striker. The only play Sky Striker can have is getting rid of your spellcaster via Hamp if they happen to open Ray and they are running Hamp. It's a big if. In those cases, oftentimes Secret Village is an auto win. Against other decks, like if you know that you're going against Elf Node, or you expect that there's going to be a lot of that, or against strategies where spells are not super critical, or against strategies that have native spellcasters like Branded, for instance, you might decide, Secret Village probably isn't the safest thing to just end on with a vanilla spellcaster essentially on the field. Maybe I want more opportunities to interact. I want to go with Dragoon and an IP so I can at least get 2 Omni Negates, plus whatever hand traps that I have. This strategy is vulnerable to things like Droplet and Super Poly, but it gives you plays to make into a board that can comfortably summon spellcasters and therefore use their spells. So you have to use your discretion. At a YCS, that's going to involve more guesswork and a lot more homework because you're not playing against your buddies that you see every week. You're going to have to look at prior events and see what kind of decks are trending, and just make an educated guess about what do I expect to see in a majority of cases in this room, and then you have to understand how that deck works and then make a judgment call about whether Village or a Recycled Dragoon would pose a bigger threat to that strategy. So until you're at an event and until you understand what everybody's playing, I can't tell you that one or the other option is objectively the correct one to make. That's up to your discretion as a duelist. How you get there is just a matter of doing your combo, which, again, if you go back and you look at the previous combo videos we talked about, you can intuit how to do that one way or the other. Let's see if we can combo here for a little bit and see what we can make of it. Try and demonstrate what I'm talking about here without messing up the combo. Alright, this is why we have to choose. We're obviously going to get Gaze because we want to have some way of extending, and both of those are going to involve using a Dark Magician fusion monster, whether that's Master of Chaos or whether that's having Red Eyes Dark Dragoon as an end piece. In order to get Dragoon and Village on board, we need to have Rod as our level 3 body on the field so that we can tune it with Korozo to make Ancient Fairy Dragon. In order to do that, one of two things has to happen. Either Rod, once normal summoned, has to remain on the field the entire combo until we use him as synchro material, or if we have to grab our field spell via Spirit with Eyes of Blue by linking Rod away, we have to summon Rod back from the graveyard. Now, without using Selene, which we don't want to do as part of our turn 1 combo in the vast majority of cases, our only way to recover Rod from the graveyard is via Master of Chaos, which means using the Gaze that we can only use once per turn. And if we're using Gaze for Master of Chaos, we can't then use it for Dragoon. So this is why you have to choose which end board piece you want to end on. I can get IP Dragoon here, no problem. I'm sure you can see the line. Or I can keep Rod on the... I can use Rod to grab the field spell, but then I have to use Gaze to get Master of Chaos. Now, occasionally you'll be lucky and you'll simply draw into a piece that you need, but we were not so lucky. So, hypothetically, if we wanted to end on Village, you would just keep doing your combo as such. Okay. Now the vulnerability in this situation, and I wasn't thinking about it, I should have done something differently. Be mindful that because we summon Master of Chaos with Gaze on this turn, it will be banished at the end of your opponent's next turn. So, if we could be in a situation where we spell lock ourselves if we don't have a spellcaster that remains on the field. The perk of leaving Master of Chaos on the field is that he's big, he's 3,000 attack, and if he's destroyed, we can grab a spell from the graveyard. So that's pretty good. Ideally, though, you'd want a monster that could stick, so it may have been better to leave our Dark Magician Girl on the field. She's a bit smaller, but still fairly hard to out for a lot of decks. And in particular, if we're making the call that our opponent just can't even play the game under Village, then we don't need to have a huge spellcaster on the field. We just want to make sure that we have a spellcaster that's going to stick. Especially because if we're playing a deck like Sky Striker and they don't just automatically scoop, maybe they have a lot of quick play spells that they're hoping to use. If they set those in past turn, and we lose our spellcaster, now their spells are back online and they can use those to stop our plays unless our first action is to immediately summon a spellcaster. So things to be wary of. But in this case, this isn't so bad. We've got 2 hand traps. Sarcophagus is already established on field, so we can use it for follow-up next turn. We can punish a summon from the graveyard, as you know. No spells for them, and we got another beater here that we can leave on the field, or we could summon one of our hand traps using his second effect to make an IP Masquerena. And in fact, that might not even be a bad idea. Say this is a blind game 1 situation. If I turn this into an IP Masquerena, I now have the option to turn this into Selene to revive Dark Magician Girl, who can then search for Shining Sark again, just as extra follow-up. Or, if they start playing the game and I realize that either spells don't matter for their strategy, or if they get a spellcaster on board right away so that I'm going to take for granted that they're going to be able to use spells, I can dump this body here for an SP Little Knight so that at least I have some way to play the game. An SP giving me 2 banishes with backed up by hand traps is better than just doing nothing and sitting on Ancient Fairy Dragon and a spellcaster with Secret Village if it's not actually floodgating them. So that's another discretionary call that you can make too, where I'm going to bet that this is good enough, but it turns out it's not good enough. Having IP Masquerena allows me to pivot and try a different strategy in the middle of my opponent's next turn. So those are some considerations for your half board. When does it make sense to do Secret Village without Dragoon? When does it make sense to do Dragoon without Secret Village? Next, let's talk about siding patterns, because we've spent this entire time talking about what to do game 1. What do you do if you're getting ready for game 2 or game 3?